Welcome to episode 45, everyone. I'm working on Riffield Model's M1A1 Abrams tank, and this is part 3 of turret detailing. In part 2, you'll remember that we added some detail to the inside of the turret, the instrumentation, some of the seats, as well as some of the other small details that I worked on earlier. In this video, I'll be assembling the ammunition bays. I'll also be using an aftermarket metal kit for some of the tank ammunition. I'll be doing cutaway sections of the upper hull so the interior can be visible. And then finally I'll pre-shade and paint the NATO green base color. So let's get started. The kit supplies its own ammunition for the ammo bays, and in the Abrams tank this is quite an ingenious system. The ammunition is stored behind a blast-proof door, and my understanding is also that the Abrams can eject its ammo in case of an emergency in order to save the crew. Quite an ingenious system. And these are the ammunition bays, and for this build I'm going to fill the one side with the kit supplied ammunition. And for the other side, I'll be using this very nice aftermarket 120mm ammo set from AFV Club. Now this is really some quality stuff, all metal, both the shells and all the different rounds, all the different sabot rounds. Much more detailed than the kit supplied parts, of course. My personal favorite are these back plates that you'll see visible in the reference pictures as well. So first step is to apply a primer and to start assembling these rounds. Now these little sections here needs to be kept silver according to my reference works, and for this I'll be using some masking tape, just masking off the necessary sections before applying primer. The primer I'm using, as usual, is a black surface primer from Vallejo. This is evenly sprayed onto all the styrene as well as metal parts. Some of these rounds, such as these canister rounds, require an olive drab base coat, and that's what I'm applying here. I'll be using metallic black from Vallejo for the front of each round. These are sabot rounds, I believe. And this color is perfect for this purpose. Now one of the things I encountered is that the aftermarket shell casings are longer than the kit supplied parts. Now my first solution was to try and cut the metal rounds shorter, but they are solid metal, and this was getting me nowhere slowly. So the workaround solution that I followed eventually was to just cut the styrene interior parts shorter by about 2 or 3 millimeters, and this is exactly what I'm doing in the visuals you're seeing right now. Very tricky work. Honestly, this part of the build was giving me headaches. For the empty racks, I wanted to hollow out a few of these kit supplied parts. These base plates are next, and they are carefully glued in place with a little bit of super glue in this case. Really very nice detailed parts, and of course these will be visible from inside of the turret as well. That's the final result, and this is now ready for primer and paint. You'll notice the firing pin area, if you can call it that, the center section needs to stay brass, and for this I used liquid mask and just used the brass color itself. Just mask that off so it would be visible in the final part. I used L-clad steel to spray these. And while this was drying, I could go ahead and assemble the aftermarket rounds. And really, these are such beautiful little detailed pieces. I used ultra glue from M1A1, and of course the beauty of this glue is that it dries completely transparent. So if you do miss a little bit of little bit of glue on the edge there, it's not going to be the end of the world. There we go. Fully assembled tank round in 1/35 scale. To get that nice metallic shine, I use some gunmetal pigment and just polish this onto the front of each tank round. Just look at this nice Sabo round. It comes in different parts. Sharp front edge there, just removing some of the excess glue. These really are very nice detailed pieces to add to any tank or artillery build that you might be busy with. Now with the front of the kit supplied rounds masked off, I could go ahead and use Vallejo chrome on the shell casings themselves. This is now dry and we can remove the liquid mask. And there is the result, folks. That is all the assembled ammunition, as well as the modified, let's call it the rear rack, where I want to use the aftermarket parts. Certainly very nice detailed pieces. To glue everything in place, I again use Ultra Glue from M1A1, and I can now just go ahead and carefully glue all the aftermarket rounds in place. Of course, this is not something you rush. You want everything lined up perfectly, and I took my time while doing this. Nice selection of different tank ammunition on display there. These are the rounds in place in the different ammo bays, and again, this had me pulling my hair out, but fortunately the results certainly were worth the effort. Now, next up, the interior. We've done all this work, added all that detail to the interior, and now the upper hull is going to come along and cover all that. And of course, that's something I want to avoid. I want to have as much of the interior visible as possible, and that is why I'm going to do a cutout section. I basically marked out the section that I wanted to cut away with a marker beforehand, and making sure to continuously fit and measure everything to make sure that I cut away the correct section. This is not something that comes with an undo button, so you might need to make dead sure that the area you're going to cut away is indeed in the correct position. To do the cutting, I use two different types of saws. First, these fine craft saws from Tamiya. These are similar to photo etched parts, fit into a standard hobby knife handle. And I also use this big saw from Tamiya. This makes short work of any styrene cutting. And between these different cutting tools, I was able to carefully cut away the section that I'd marked earlier for the cutaway. There we go. After everything was carefully cut away, this is the result. And once this is fitted to the tank, we should have a nice view of the interior. Take a look at this nice commander's turret. All moving parts, all working parts. And of course this will be in place, almost floating on top. Just to have all the essential items there. Also the loaders, turret hatch. There we go. Now this needs to be primed. The interior needs to be white, and for that I'm using white surface primer from Vallejo. Just coating the inside with white. Of course also the edges where I made the cut. That's the result. At this stage I also added some photo etch parts to the back bustle rack, as you can see there. Next up, I need to coat the outer of the upper turret section with primer. Again, I'm using white primer from Vallejo, and this is the result. This is now ready to take some black for pre-shading. The The first step, however, is to give it a light sanding. By light, I mean very light. I think this is an 800 grit sander, just to get rid of some of that dust that might have accumulated on the surface while we airbrush this. Next step is to mask off the interior. We want to keep that white, not get any black pre-shading into the interior. I'm using Vallejo black, solid black, for the pre-shading, and this is now very carefully sprayed with my Iwata Eclipse airbrush. Really for detail work such as this, the Eclipse is an absolutely fantastic airbrush. You can use a different variety of masking materials. This is just a little piece of cardboard, works very well. And in this manner, I just continued adding some shading to the rest of the upper turret. All those shady spots there. At some point, you might find that the needle will clog with dried paint, and this is very easy to remove. Either use some tap water or some airbrush cleaner. And once this is done, we're good to go again. Guys, and just to show you that things don't always go to plan, look at this. Yes, masking tape came off, and along with it a large part of my primer. Fortunately, this is easy to fix. Just sand it down and reapply the primer and the pre-shading. Fortunately, in this case, an easy fix. That's the result. Pre-shading has been applied, and this is now ready to take the NATO green base coat. Now, to paint this model, I'm going to use the NATO armor colors from Vallejo. It's a paint set, and the first step, of course, is to apply the NATO green base coat. It calls for primer. In this case, I already have primer on the model, so I'm going to use the paint itself, the NATO green color from Vallejo Model Air. And this is very lightly applied in different coats to the exterior of the model. You don't want to kill that pre-shading, so I'm doing this very carefully and very lightly, building up the color as I go along. That's the result. The base coat has been laid down, and next up we want to do a few highlight colors. To do the highlights, I'll be using NATO green and mixing in some Model Air. I believe this is called NATO Light. I haven't been able to track down this color again, just in the regular paint series. But anyway, 3 or 4 drops of this added to the NATO green base color, and that should give us a lighter shade of NATO green. There we go. That's perfect for a highlight color. This is now carefully applied with the airbrush again, gradually building up that highlight faded color shade of green that you can see there happening on screen. Once the exterior has been painted, I use my Green Stuff World gel type super glue, and everything is glued together. Folks, and that's the result. I'm certainly happy with this. Still some detailing to do. The commander's viewing blocks need to be added, as well as some of the exterior detail to that turret. But we are 90% there, and I'm certainly very happy with the result. It was quite a risk cutting away that large section of the roof, but it certainly is worth it to show the interior detail that I spent so much time on. There you have your usual list of paint colors and products. You can also see the AFV Club ammo set that I used there, all the different products available from all good hobby shops. And guys, as always, if you are curious to follow me on this build, do follow me on Instagram. I post regular updates there, and I promise you won't get left behind. Thank you for watching, and looking forward to seeing everyone in the next video.